Well, politics has always been rough and tumble, but the battle's intensified over the past decade with opposition from the right to President Obama and now from the left to President Trump, all mixing together for an angry and now potentially deadly stew. It's something I talked about with the Wall Street Journal's Dan Henninger in our first hour of Happening Now.
We're really heading into kind of dangerous waters here. I mean, I have to say, there were many of us who thought we were hoping all the way through the years of the Obama presidency that there would be no assassination attempts. And when it was over, breathed a sigh of relief that we had gotten through that. Now the same sort of emotions are in play with the attempted political assassination, that's what it was, of Congressman Scalise. And I think under those circumstances, people should understand emotions are getting dangerous on the left and on the right, and it's time to pull that level of psychological unhingement back.
I'm joined now by Chris Wallace, the anchor, of course, of Fox News Sunday. It's always been a country where politics, mixed with violence once in a while. Go back to the Burr-Hamilton duel. Go back to John Wilkes Booth. Is it as bad now as you've seen it, Chris?
Well, it's as bad now on an everyday level as I've ever seen it. Although when you hear what John Adams and Thomas Jefferson said about each other in the first contested presidential election, that was pretty brutal as well. But when you now have 24-hour news cycles, you have social media, and it just is a kind of steady drumbeat of invective and demonization of the other side. It's not new. It wasn't invented with Donald Trump. I mean, remember Clinton derangement syndrome and Bush and Obama and the opposition just hating the president and hating that side of the aisle, but it's obviously it's a kind of toxic mix, because on the one hand you've got this level of invective, and then you've got deranged individuals. And I suppose, John, and I've been thinking about this a lot today, it puts a greater responsibility on all of us in the public eye, whether we're politicians or whether we're in the news media, to kind of be careful about our language. You can talk about issues. We need to talk about issues, and as part of our vibrant democracy, we need to have a frank and rough debate over some issues. But in terms of the kind of level of invective, there's no need for that, and we need to try to dial it back.
You get some agreement there from Wyoming Senator John Barrasso. I spoke to him during the first hour of Happening Now. Here's what he had to say.
It is demented action. It is deranged thinking. There's a lot of history in the United States of people debating vigorously issues, and we're going to continue to do that. And I'll be home in Wyoming hearing about the more pain that Obamacare is causing people in Wyoming. I'll be hearing about jobs and the economy. But I think it's important, once we get back here, to work together to find solutions that are in the best interest of the American people.
He spoke about jobs. The gunman in this case was somebody who felt that the rich were getting richer and the poor were not. He apparently had been unemployed for some period of time. I wonder if the Trump administration can get the economy going, get more jobs created in that country, if some of this might go away.
Well, look, there are always going to be people. It's just the nature of the world, of life, that there are going to be people, whether it's personal issues or professional issues or mental or emotional issues, who are going to be very unhappy and deranged. And there are, it's just a fact of life, sick people walking the streets. The vast majority of them don't do what James Hodgkinson did yesterday, thank God, but there are always going to be people. And look, on the one hand, I think we need to be more responsible. On the other hand, I don't think it's fair to say that anybody is responsible on the outside for what this deranged person did. I don't think you can sit there and blame Bernie Sanders or Rachel Maddow for what he did any more than if there were a conservative who were to do this tomorrow to Democrats. You could blame Fox News, and I'm sure there'd be some people who would say that. But I do think all we can do is all we can do, and that is to try to be more responsible, to try to be more level-headed. And this question of bipartisan action, you know, it would be so wonderful were it to happen. But let's just take a perfect example in terms of health care, John, where there are a lot of conservatives, and I think rightly so, who feel that Obamacare was jammed down their throats on a strict party line vote. As a result, it was not as good a bill. There is a majority opposition to it, or roughly a majority opposition. And now you've got the possibility of repeal and replace happening the same way, under the same circumstances, the same party line vote, and it won't be as good as it would be again if you had both sides working together. I would like to think that this could be what some people are calling a circuit breaker, where it could break the cycle of the vicious cycle of you did this to me, so we're going to do this to you. Frankly, I'm not hopeful about it. Look at the Gabby Giffords case and the beautiful speech Barack Obama made, and everybody said, yep, we're going to clean up our act, and it lasted about a week.
Well, and another lightning rod potentially coming up. The reports that Special Counsel Robert Mueller is widening the Russia probe, investigating President Trump for possible obstruction of justice. Now, you know, again, this comes out of the Washington Post reporting and a lot of unnamed sources, but clearly that could rock the foundations of the executive branch if this comes forward.
Well, look, yes, that it certainly could, and you can argue that that's something that adds to this. The argument of some on the left that Donald Trump is not a legitimate president. We do have to remember that Donald Trump was among people on the right who said that Barack Obama perhaps was not a legitimate president because he might not have been born in this country. So, you know, this vicious cycle has gone back and back and back. And let me say one more thing to folks out there, because I get, and I'm sure you do, John, awful emails from people, things that people would never say to your face, but with the courage of the keyboard, they are willing to say, and you have a responsibility as well to clean up your acts. You want to say that what we do is wrong? Feel free to do it. But you don't need to say it in a mean and dehumanizing way. I say that to me. I say it on behalf of people in public life. We all need to take responsibility for our actions and our language and our rhetoric. And we would all be better if we just knocked it off.
Good point. Chris Wallace, thank you, and we'll see you on Fox News Sunday.
You bet.